Have you ever wondered if the voice inside your head, the one you believe to be yours, is really guiding you to freedom or trapping you in a cage of your own making? It is the age-old question. How do we break free from our own mind? The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche once said, "He who fights with monsters should be careful lest he thereby become a monster." And if you gaze long enough into an abyss, the abyss will gaze back into you. This abyss, this darkness, is not just the realm of external forces, but the realm within us. It is the battle of self-talk, a voice we've been taught to trust, but may in fact be our deepest oppressor. Every thought, every whisper we utter to ourselves seems to be wrapped in a strange duality. It can comfort us, yes, but also torment us. It can inspire us, but it can just as easily drag us into the depths of despair. At the core of the human mind, there is a constant hum, a voice that never rests. It is the voice of self-talk. We might believe we are its master, yet it often feels as though we are merely passengers, being carried along a path dictated by the very thoughts we trust most. It is an enigma, this voice. It can serve as a guide, whispering encouragement, bolstering confidence, urging us to take the leap and act. But more often than not, it becomes the source of doubt, fear, and paralyzing self-criticism. We have been taught to trust our thoughts as truth, but are they really so reliable? Is the voice inside our head the one that will lead us to freedom? Or is it merely a trickster, a puppet master controlling our every move? What happens when this voice becomes an incessant critic, a relentless force that holds us in place, forcing us to confront all of our perceived flaws? What if the very mechanism designed to help us is the one that keeps us chained? The paradox lies here. The mind that was meant to set us free is often the one that imprisons us. Self-talk is an undeniable part of the human experience. It's the internal dialogue we have with ourselves, the constant stream of thoughts that shape our perceptions of the world. It's the voice that offers reassurance during moments of doubt, and the one that casts shadows over our most brilliant ideas. But beneath this dialogue lies something deeper, something far more complex. For centuries, philosophers and writers have grappled with the nature of the human mind, and many have come to a troubling conclusion. The mind, far from being a rational instrument, is a chaotic battleground, a place where reason and irrationality wrestle in constant tension. The voice inside our head is not just a passive observer, it is a participant in this battle. It might try to calm the storm, but more often than not, it adds to the noise. Friedrich Nietzsche, in his exploration of the human condition, spoke about the constant tension between order and chaos within us. He argued that the human mind is not a stable or reliable entity. We are constantly torn between our desire for structure and our need for freedom. Nietzsche's philosophy suggests that this tension is essential to our existence. It is the source of both our greatest strengths and our deepest weaknesses. The voice that speaks to us in moments of self-doubt is not a detached observer. It is a reflection of this inner conflict. It pulls us in different directions, urging us to change, to evolve, but also warning us of the dangers of embracing change too recklessly. It presents itself as the guide to success, but it also serves as the barrier to that success by filling our minds with doubt and hesitation. Imagine for a moment the life of the Underground Man, a character created by Fyodor Dostoevsky in his notes from Underground. The Underground Man is a man deeply introspective, lost in the labyrinth of his own mind. He is constantly at odds with himself, unable to reconcile his thoughts with his actions. His internal dialogue is endless, a stream of self-loathing, second-guessing, and paralyzing doubt. Yet paradoxically, this very self-talk is what defines him. It is his existence. In many ways, the Underground Man's relationship with his thoughts mirrors our own. We too are prisoners of our inner dialogue, locked in a constant struggle between self-criticism and self-affirmation. The voice inside our head can be both our greatest ally and our most unforgiving enemy. We are often at war with ourselves, unsure whether the voice is pushing us forward or holding us back. The Underground Man is aware of his condition, but he is trapped by it. He cannot escape his own mind. And perhaps this is the most tragic aspect of self-talk, its ability to keep us locked in a loop of endless introspection without offering any real resolution. We find ourselves trapped in a cycle of overthinking, replaying conversations, revisiting past mistakes, and constructing narratives that reinforce our fears and insecurities. This tension between our inner desires and the limitations imposed by our own thoughts is a defining characteristic of human existence. Jean-Paul Sartre, a philosopher known for his exploration of existentialism, wrote about the nature of consciousness and the burden it imposes on us. Sartre believed that humans are condemned to be free. That is, we are free to choose our actions, but with this freedom comes the weight of responsibility. Sartre argued that consciousness is both a gift and a curse. We are constantly aware of our choices, of the infinite possibilities available to us, but this awareness also brings with it a profound sense of anxiety. Our self-talk is a reflection of this awareness. It serves as a constant reminder of our freedom and the responsibility that comes with it. But it also traps us in a state of perpetual questioning, never allowing us to feel truly certain or secure in our decisions. In Sartre's philosophy, the idea of bad faith is central to understanding the role of self-talk. Bad faith is the act of deceiving oneself, of living in denial of one's own freedom and responsibility. We often use self-talk to justify our actions, to make excuses for our failures, or to rationalize our fears. We tell ourselves that we cannot change, that we are bound by our circumstances, that the world is too harsh or too unfair. This is the voice of bad faith, the voice that prevents us from confronting the truth of our own existence. But Sartre also believed that the key to liberation lies in recognizing and embracing our freedom. To free ourselves from the tyranny of self-talk, we must stop deceiving ourselves. We must acknowledge that our thoughts, while powerful, are not the ultimate truth. Our minds may try to convince us of our limitations, but in reality, we are free to choose, to act, and to change. As we continue to explore the nature of self-talk, it becomes clear that this voice is not just a passive observer of our lives. It is an active participant in shaping our reality. The thoughts we choose to entertain, the narratives we construct, and the stories we tell ourselves all play a role in defining who we are. Our self-talk becomes the lens through which we view the world, coloring our experiences and influencing our actions. But just as our thoughts can shape our reality, they can also distort it. We may believe that our thoughts are guiding us toward truth and clarity, but in many cases, they are simply reinforcing the narratives we've already constructed in our minds. We are trapped in a loop of self-perpetuating beliefs, unable to see beyond the limitations we've set for ourselves. It's important to remember that the mind is not inherently biased. The thoughts that shape our reality are not predetermined. They are shaped by the stories we tell ourselves. And just as we have the power to shape our thoughts, we also have the power to reshape them. The key is in recognizing the false narratives we've internalized and choosing to challenge them. But to do so requires a deep understanding of our own minds, an understanding that is often obscured by the noise of self-talk. What happens when we stop listening to the voice inside our head, when we stop believing that it has all the answers? Is it possible to quiet the mind, to live without the constant barrage of thoughts and judgments? And if we do quiet the mind, what remains? These are the questions that have haunted philosophers, writers, and thinkers for centuries. As we navigate the complexities of self-talk, we must recognize the delicate balance between embracing the voice inside our heads and questioning its authority. The mind is a powerful tool, but it is also fallible. It can lead us to greatness, but it can also pull us into the depths of despair. So, how do we break free from the tyranny of the mind? How do we learn to live with ourselves, without being consumed by the very voice that defines us? These are questions we must continue to ask as we explore the depths of our consciousness and ultimately the nature of our freedom. As we dive deeper into the nature of self-talk, we find ourselves facing a profound question. What would happen if we learned to listen more carefully to the voice inside, but also to the silence between the thoughts? Imagine, for a moment, that you could separate yourself from the constant stream of words and judgments that flow through your mind. What if you could stand outside your own thoughts, watching them without being consumed by them? This is not an abstract concept. It's a practice, one that many ancient traditions have explored for centuries. Meditation, mindfulness, and other contemplative practices all emphasize the power of observing one's thoughts without attachment. The idea is simple, but the practice is difficult. We are so accustomed to the relentless chatter of the mind that it can be hard to imagine a life where silence is not a rarity, but a constant presence. The key to freeing ourselves from the tyranny of self-talk is not to silence the voice altogether, but to reclaim our relationship with it. We must become the observer, not the participant, in the ongoing drama of our own minds. This process of detachment doesn't mean rejecting the voice inside us. It means recognizing it for what it is, a series of thoughts and narratives, but not necessarily the truth. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist and founder of analytical psychology, spoke extensively about the unconscious mind and the shadows it casts. He believed that the unconscious, much like self-talk, contains a wealth of material that can either help or hinder us, depending on how we engage with it. Jung's idea of the shadow is particularly relevant here. The shadow represents the hidden, often repressed parts of ourselves, those thoughts, feelings, and aspects of our identity that we tend to deny or ignore. Much like the oppressive self-talk that can take over our minds, our shadow is not inherently malevolent. It is a part of who we are, yet it often remains hidden, lurking beneath the surface. The more we resist it, the more power it gains over us. But when we bring the shadow into the light, when we acknowledge its existence and its role in shaping our thoughts and behaviors, we reclaim power over it. Self-talk is a modern-day manifestation of the shadow. We may try to push away the negative thoughts, the voices that criticize and condemn us, but in doing so, we only give them more power. Instead of suppressing them, Jung would suggest that we must integrate them, acknowledging them without allowing them to dominate our lives. But how do we begin this process of integration? How do we learn to see the self-talk that plagues us not as a source of shame or guilt, but as a pathway to understanding? The first step is awareness. We must become acutely aware of the thoughts that govern our lives. Every moment of self-criticism, every time we doubt our abilities or question our worth, we must recognize it for what it is: a voice, a thought, a fleeting idea. Awareness gives us the space to observe without becoming consumed. Instead of believing that the voice is a reflection of reality, we can learn to question it. Once we've achieved awareness, we can begin to challenge the narratives that shape our perception of ourselves. This is the heart of cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, a psychological approach that encourages individuals to identify and confront negative thought patterns. By questioning the validity of these thoughts, we can begin to dismantle the false beliefs that keep us trapped in cycles of self-doubt. But it's not just about challenging thoughts. It's about creating new, healthier narratives, ones that acknowledge our imperfections but don't allow them to define us. The voice inside our head may never fully disappear, but we can teach it to speak with more compassion, more wisdom, and less judgment. There is a story told by the renowned Buddhist teacher Pema Chodron that beautifully encapsulates this idea. She speaks of a young student who, after a particularly difficult period of self-reflection, came to her in despair. The student had been meditating, trying to quiet the mind, but instead of finding peace, they had been overwhelmed by the rising tide of negative thoughts. Chodron's response was simple: don't run away from the thoughts. Instead, welcome them. Let them come and then let them go. Just don't believe everything they tell you. In this wisdom, there is a powerful insight. The voice inside our heads is not our enemy. It is simply a part of us, a part of the human experience. It's the stories we tell ourselves that define whether it becomes an ally or an adversary. The more we resist, the more we fall into the trap of believing that our thoughts are the truth. But by acknowledging their presence without attachment, we can begin to shift our relationship with them. We become the observer, no longer entangled in the narrative, but able to see it from a place of clarity and calm. But what happens when we fail to take this step? What if we allow the self-talk to continue unchecked, allowing it to define our reality? The answer lies in another idea from Nietzsche. In his exploration of the will to power, Nietzsche proposed that human beings are driven by an innate desire to overcome obstacles, to push beyond their limitations. But when we fail to confront the limitations of our own minds, when we allow the negative self-talk to persist unchecked, we ultimately diminish our capacity for growth. Self-talk, when left unchallenged, can become a force that not only holds us back, but actively sabotages our potential. It creates a wall of resistance, convincing us that we cannot overcome our fears, that we cannot change, that we are bound by our past mistakes. But Nietzsche's philosophy reminds us that our true power lies not in avoiding these obstacles, but in facing them head-on. To overcome the tyranny of self-talk, we must embrace the discomfort of self-examination and grow stronger through it. This is where true freedom lies, not in the absence of the voice, but in our ability to choose how we respond to it. As we near the conclusion of this exploration, we must return to the central question: how do we break free from the tyranny of our own minds? The answer is deceptively simple. We stop letting our thoughts control us. We stop allowing self-talk to define who we are. We learn to create space between ourselves and our thoughts, to challenge the narratives we've been taught to believe, and to cultivate a more compassionate and empowering inner dialogue. The tyranny of the mind does not end when we silence the voice. It ends when we stop believing that every thought is the truth. It ends when we reclaim our power to choose, to act, and to shape our own reality, regardless of the stories our minds may try to tell us. And perhaps this is the most important lesson of all. We are not our thoughts. We are the ones who choose how we engage with them. We are the ones who determine whether they will be our prison or our liberation. The mind, with all its noise and chatter, is a tool, a powerful one. But it is only a tool. It does not define us. It is merely a reflection of our inner world, a world that we have the power to change. So the next time you hear that voice inside your head, the one that doubts you, criticizes you, or tells you that you're not good enough, remember this: it's not the voice of your true self. It's just a thought, and thoughts can change. You are not bound by your mind. You are free to choose, free to create, and free to become the person you are meant to be. And that, perhaps, is the greatest freedom of all. If you found this message helpful, share it with someone who might need to hear it. And remember, your journey of self-mastery starts with one thought at a time. Keep going. You've got this.